listening to Lost in Translation, where I explore with guests a word and draw upon their experience, their life story, their culture, their point of view, so no one ever gets lost in translation. I'm your host, Cynthia Bernard, and together, let's bridge gaps, embrace different cultures, and honor every single voice. Welcome to Lost in Translation, where we unlock the true meaning behind words, ensuring that no one ever gets lost along the way. So, hi everyone who's listening. For this episode, we will explore the word premiere as we premiere this series of Lost in Translation. And I'm so happy to have this particular guest. It's the first time we're actually going to talk in real life type of thing. It's going to be a writing, a friendship relationship yet. And this past winter, during one of the most important regional, I think, of the season, I was at home, which is usually not what happens to me. And I was looking at all the independent A high ranked then groups, because then I was a director of these Eclipse. We were also high ranked. So looking at the competitive side of things and geeking out. And that's how I stumbled upon the Magnolia project. And I was, as people know me, last year's program of the Magnolia is not the type of show that I personally write as a designer. It's not the type of thing that I go for. But this production in particular, which I think was called Remember Me, or Remember When, is that right?
Yeah, Remember When.
I don't know, the performance, the way the members just performed, how it exuded even through just a little scream of floor marching. I was completely shaken to the core. And as an ex-director, we don't write enough to the directors, which it's lonely on top. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to write to that person, the name that was told at the end of the program, to be like, this is impressive and completely crazy. You're going to go so far with this program, not knowing you. And now I'm really happy we're going to talk for the first time. So hi, Jessie. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. How are you?
I'm really, really good. I'm really happy to talk to you. It's that type of connection that I had with you that I feel that it doesn't happen often, or at least I'm a really big introvert. So to write to someone and to just reach out. But when someone has nice eyes, you just say it out loud. And this show was so, so, so touching. But let's get to know each other a little bit more, because we just talked about your program a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So how did you start with Color Guard? Before we go into the word premiere, like, who are you? How did you start with Color Guard? And
so I grew up, I'm originally from Kansas, from Atchison, Kansas, but I went to elementary school. I started in the 3rd grade in Tennessee. And so that's where I went to junior high and high school as well. My older sister was actually in Color Guard before me. And I actually cheered most of my life, and believe it or not, right?
Yeah.
And so, but my older sister was in Color Guard. And so she, would always ask me, if I wanted to join or like come outside, and like learn how to spin and, different things like that. And of course, at the time, I was like, no, that's lame. I don't want to do that, And then I got to high school and took a year off of cheerleading, and going into my sophomore year, I was like, well, what the hell? I'll just, give it a try. And probably from the very first rehearsal, the very first audition, I just fell in love with it. And so I did it my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school. And then after I got out of high school, I marched at Eclipse. That was in 2004, and then I didn't march in 2005, and then I marched in 2006 and 2007. And so then after that, I was in school here at Western at the university that I teach at now, and I danced there for a couple semesters. And then really after that is kind of when I just dove into teaching.
So you stopped marching pretty before you aged out, type of thing. If I
Yes.
am good. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
And you started teaching right away at the high school as a designer, as a choreographer, tech. Like, what was your?
When I first got out of high school, as I was marching, I went back to the high school that I came from and taught a little bit just as a tech. When I very first started teaching, I was just kind of like here and there, at a couple of, random, just different programs, kind of just, getting my footing and stuff like that. And then really it wasn't until, the year after I quit marching, so my last year performing was in '07. And the following year, one of my best good friends, and she's still my best good friend now. She's actually a judge now too. In the area that she was in, she started an independent group, Elizabethtown Independent, and so I went and taught with her there. And so we were only out for 2 years, '08 and '09. We actually made finals in '09.
Wow.
That's really kind of, that experience is what really kind of made my teaching career kind of take off. I taught around the area with several friends for a number of years. And then I taught at Eastern High School in Louisville with another one of our mutual friends. And he actually now is one of the designers and choreographers for Magnolia.
Okay.
So just kind of full circle.
Yeah.
And after I left from teaching with him, I took a year off because my husband and I were pregnant with our daughter. And I didn't want to be a balloon and be trying to teach, in the middle of August and September. It was, I felt like it was just going to be too much. So I took that year off and then we had our daughter. And then we ended up moving back down to Tennessee. And that's where I started teaching at White House High School, which eventually turned into the Magnolia Project.
How did it transition? Why did you go independent? Like,
my best friend had lived with us, my husband and I, on and off for several years. Also in the activity, we lost him that same fall. And so and he had taught with me too at that same program, really all over the place. He and I kind of just did every project together up until that point. He and I always wanted to have a winter guard program, because there wasn't much, there's not a whole lot in the area. I mean, anything, is any other independent group is a few hours from where we are. And so, we always wanted to create an independent organization to give kids a home that wouldn't otherwise have one, due to like, their financial situation or, their like home life situation or, because, all kids aren't set up to be able to go and pay $1,500, to march, somewhere. And so, and we had just lost him. So with that in mind, and us having to go independent anyway, I just decided to go ahead and start the Magnolia Project.
That's so interesting. So before we go, I was going to say deeper, but we went. I'm happy. I always ask the guest, the word is premiere for this episode. And we're not going to go like every question talking about premiere, because the thing that is so interesting about you is that this group is so young. So you just went through it and you're going to have a premiere and open class. So we're going to focus about this too. But before all of this, what does that word brings to you? Maybe a story or just a gut feeling, like premiere?
I think premiere for me, it sounds refreshing. And I think when I think of that, like I feel like it truly means like beginning. The awakening of something, the beginning of something.
That's so cool.
That's what I relate it to. That's anyhow.
Cool. Yeah. So the program is young. I not as young as I thought it was, because it's a birth of a bunch of different programs and you are working, but you had several premieres in the last years. And with the pandemic that we're not going to talk about, it happened. It's in the middle of of your stories in it. But premieres as far as shows and regional and WGI, do you have specific memories of challenges you faced during the initial state, or even, I mean, the initial state, we're talking about what, 4 years, 5 years of program?
Yeah, this upcoming season will be our 5th year in existence. So we've only existed for 4 winter seasons.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I think initially, it wasn't overly challenging because I still had the security of my high school program. I still had the security of that gym every week, and we were able to keep our regular rehearsal schedule throughout the week because these are all middle school and high school students. We didn't have to only rehearse on the weekends, like most independent teams have to. So it allowed us a little bit more flexibility, I think. But again, like I said, I still had the security of being with my high school. So, we didn't have to fight for facilities or pay for facilities, or anything like that. However, that was the year that COVID hit. So in our inaugural year, we went to the Nashville Regional not knowing that was our very last performance. So about maybe a week or so after that show, I think maybe is when we found out. I'm not entirely certain. So that kind of presented, a whole nother set of challenges, not because, we started the program or anything like that, but, we had no idea what the future of the activity was even going to look like because of COVID, and all of a sudden we were in quarantine and, the marching arts didn't exist anymore, so, and then I think, really coming out of that, we were just grateful to be able to, even really still exist, going into that next winter season. So, which was a virtual year. We had I think we fielded maybe 22 members that next year. But again, things were very strange. We were wearing masks, with uniforms and things like that. So still kind of uncertain, as to the future of the activity. And then the year after that one was our first year in person at WGI. So we've only actually been to WGI physically twice.
Hey everyone, it's Jeremy, the producer from On a Water Break, the main show. And while you're enjoying this great bonus content from some amazing hosts, there's a whole other show happening with guests, news, and plenty of other fun things that you and your friends are talking about on a water break. So take a moment, go subscribe so that you can get your notifications every week for the main episode of On a Water Break. If you have news or know of somebody that would be a great guest, or maybe you would be a great guest, email us at onawaterbreakpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media at onawaterbreak. And now back to this fantastic bonus content.
And we'll see you at the show.
So I geeked out and I looked for your programs, and it felt like this year the program was a lot different, maybe creatively, or the inspiration was different. But then I'm saying that as I looking at the shows, they all are very different from one another. I mean, there's still, I feel that training that seems to be like almost your brand. I don't want to put words into, but from an outside perspective, a little bit like the Fandomette. You always see the Fandomette, but the shows are different. Like it seems like that, but this show seemed really different, really heartfelt. And so what inspired creatively, or that vision? How did it happen for this show to be so deeply rooted in emotions, or at least felt like?
I think every year I always try to do something that is going to, I guess I get a reaction. I don't want to say get a reaction because I feel like that verbiage kind of sounds cheap, or maybe inconsiderate, maybe. But I always want to do something that is going to make you feel something. So get a reaction, you know? And I think each year I try to I try to outdo myself from the previous year. I try to challenge myself, you know, cause we all as directors and creators have these visions, you know, of shows that we've always wanted to do, but, you know, felt like we couldn't because, you know, either like, you know, the props aren't going to be sufficient or, you know, it's not feasible. You know, we always have these ideas that seem bigger than what we could actually achieve. And I think each year I try to achieve one of those, you know, types of shows. And so the Magnolia Project, my friend Ben, this was always our dream, you know, even calling it the Magnolia Project, you know, loosely referencing Steel Magnolias. That was always like our sisterhood, you know, and so we were always going to call it the Magnolia Project. And so each show that we've done for me personally has been to tell some kind of story, or it's been a show, you know, that he and I had always talked about doing, or something that, you know, it's just kind of always, I guess, been my connection to him, you know, still, because this was always the thing that we had. So going into this year, I feel like really in order to serve the program for what it fully can be, I needed to let go. I needed to fully be able to not forget, but be able to let go. And, you know, I think that's what really drove this show for me. And not this past year at WGI, but the previous year. During WGI, we were actually in rehearsal when my husband and I got the phone call that our sister-in-law had passed away. She and I had the same type of cancer. And, you know, unfortunately hers was just too far advanced, you know, by the time they found it. So it was a battle, you know, for her for a while. And so we got that call that we had lost her. And so she was in a lot of our winter show this past year as well. And so I think just really the letting go and embracing like the longevity of the program is kind of just what drove the you know, creative ideas, I guess, for this past year, as well as I wanted to give the members something. You know, it seems like every year we're just trying to get better and trying to get better and trying to get better and trying to reach this invisible
excellent
goal, you know, and I wanted the kids to be able to do something. I wanted them to be able to have a season where they weren't only focused on just achieving a higher skill set. I wanted them to be able to just be really good at what they were already really good at. You know, where when they're throwing a toss, it's not 50-50 if it's coming down into my hands or not, you know, where they were struggling, you know, every weekend to achieve things. And you know, a lot of this was based on the kids too, from the very beginning. You know, I wanted this to be too about what their personal connection was to this or to the activity. You know, the tune, the soundtrack, you know, is a duet, and you know, I encouraged them to write out and, you know, send me or discuss, you know, with someone, anyone, you know, if not with me, like what their personal connection to someone that they've lost or to the activity, you know, different things like that, to kind of really fuel that emotion and, you know, help them maybe to let go of something as well, or, you know what I mean? Or really fully be able to appreciate performing in the moment. You know, and so that's kind of where the visual perspective of the Magnolias from the production came into play, was that it was just as much about the membership and the program itself as it was, you know, like a personal thing for me. And I feel like really what made it what it was is the kids' ability to connect and emote, you know, their story.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's so smart in so different ways. And I didn't hear you at any point about you wanted to score high and make it to the sheets or apply this to be like, it doesn't feel like it was like the goal and maybe the driving. Cause it's always, I don't say it's a goal, but we're competing. We love competition. That's not a bad thing, but for you to consider and it's, to me, it's not cheap at all to say you want to create an emotion, because that's what art is. Like it's how you even evaluate it at some point within it's in the color guard, or even if you're a journalist giving a critique about a painting, like it needs to emote something, and you don't have to like what it emotes into you as a person. You don't have to like the emotions you're living, but if you feel something, there's a goal that was reached. At least that's what I was told when I was evaluating for different, even like dance anyway. But that is very smart to have something that the people in the crowd can, and it's part of the sheets too. And you didn't talk about the sheets, but it's part of the sheets, and it is a real effect. It does create a real effect, for one. Two, to have people and members that can just control what they're doing from almost the beginning of the season. In A class, it makes sense with the scoring sheets, but I also think it makes sense with the kids coming out of COVID. They have lived so many insecurities and so many hard things, even outside of color guard and winter guard, that I remember going back to the gym and having kids saying like, we just need to feel good. We just need to feel good doing what we're doing. And even the struggle to make finals, like how it's like, they don't want to, you don't talk about competition in gyms, maybe people do, but it's hard for them.
We definitely talk about competition a lot. And I definitely agree with you. I mean, like we compete. So it's natural to be competitive. You know, it is natural to do everything that you can, you know, to attain any type of success, whatever that word means to you, you know. So we're definitely competitive, but that does for me come secondary to the experience of like the members, you know, in the program, and you know what they're going to be performing and different things like that. I would give up making finals every year for people to just remember our show, you know, because they've been affected by it in some way, whether it's fun and upbeat like the previous year was. We did a show about like a trailer park, you know, and it was so fun. It was so fun to do. And, you know, we didn't make finals. We were 2 spots out of finals, but people still talk about that show, you know, and granted it was only, you know, a year or 2 ago, but, you know, I mean, it created like an experience for the audience, you know, while they were watching it. So, you know, again, like I said, like, yes, we are competitive, but it comes secondary to like the audience reaction and the experience of the members. And, you know, because for me, like placing or getting a medal isn't going to mean anything if like, you had to,
if it only means something to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And if they listen to this, which I hope they do, I'm no one, but I'm a human. So I'm and I'm important in the sense that I don't want to make myself important, and you know, cause I told you but finals, I was with my mom anyway, missed the plane for people. A lot of people know this story, but I missed the plane, didn't make it to WGI. It's the first, I'm 37. I think it's the third WGI or second WGI I missed my entire life out of missing a plane. And me and my mom were on a holiday because I just need to get out. And she's a color guard person from drum corps since the beginning. I had that relationship with the mother. I was super transparent with you, stalked you, saw that your daughter is part of your family is a thing. And we cried. I didn't tell her anything. I didn't tell her about the program. I just told her that I reached the director and you were a nice person. That's it, because I wanted to see her. And for her, the program itself, she doesn't speak English, so the words didn't connect to her in the same type of way, but the musicality, and and we're jumping questions, but I have to talk about this. The musicality of your show is unbelievable. I don't know if it's you or if it's your choreographer or if it's a mixture of all of this, but seems to me like you hear music differently than a lot of people, because there were those little subtle notes and variations in the music that you made visual, and that just
we honestly, a lot of it I don't do anything by myself. Everything is filtered through like a team of us. So there are a couple of consultants on one side that I have, and then there are the other choreographers that we have. We call them the boys, because it's one of my best good friends, Sean, and his husband. And they're teach color guard, and and this is a big group project. It's a big family affair. My friend that I was speaking about earlier, that we had lost a few years ago, that all of this kind of started with, and has kind of been about, marched with my friend Sean, who's now on staff at Magnolia, and has been. But so everything kind of goes through like two different like teams of people. And then, so of course, like one side is the more like abstract version of, the creative side of it. And then of course the tangible part, the choreography and different things like that. But they are incredible choreographers. And then like we all just kind of like, pick the pieces of the chunks, that we're going to work through. And then, like once we get like the meat of things on, like we'll go back and, make sure I really like to make sure that we're hitting every like musical note possible, every lyrical line, because they're all so different. So, I always try to make sure like whatever's happening on the floor is being picked up by a certain section. And then like the choreographers of the other sections, if it's a part that I didn't write, or something like that, are just awesome at making sure, Sean's husband, Miles, is a middle school band director. So he's music, anyhow. And so I think that's kind of, we all just, really try to make sure, I guess I don't know. Maybe I don't know when it happened for me, but I know I didn't always write this way. I know I didn't always like coordinate or construct this way. And honestly, I've learned a lot of it from watching Sean and Miles, like myself, because I've always felt like they hear music differently, But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think. I know. And maybe it's just because like now being at an independent organization, because especially when you're teaching high school kids, you can't always write to every single note in the music just because, depending on their skill set, like they may not, be able to achieve it, or I don't know, maybe I think the Magnolia kids, though, are just they're awesome kids, and they spin really well, and they make it easy for us to be able to achieve things like that.
Yeah. Well, if you don't know what we're talking about, you have to, this show to me is a masterclass on musicality, but to hear and that you said the lyrical side of things. And often I feel people don't listen to the music, the voice, the lyrical, or the voice as an instrument.
Right.
They listen to the words a lot.
Right.
And which is great, but both exists. So
correct.
But if you watch the flag feature or the flag build up to the flag feature, and you focus maybe on the female voice, you will see the flag feature in a certain way. And then you focus just on the male voice and you will see the flag feature in a different way. And then anyway, so if you guys want to understand what maybe I think I heard and saw, just go see the Magnolia Project in that perspective. And then you'll see so many different things in that show. You want to know how they got fourth from prelims to second with a silver medal at WGI Championship, or just to know a little bit more about their premiere in open class? You can listen to part 2 where I talk to Jessie Price from the Magnolia Project.